Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to Powerful Conversations. I am excited to have you here with us today. Thank you for tuning in. And if no one has told you that they love you today, know that I love you. We're back with another awesome show, another awesome testimony. And I want to know from you, if God has moved mountains in your life, I want you to type in the chat, He's moved mountains. Just somebody type in the chat, if He has moved mountains in your life and He has caused walls to fall for you, type in the chat, He's moved mountains. I give God glory. I give Him honor for today, for your life, for you. We have a wonderful young lady that's with us today named Leila Starks, and she's going to be sharing her testimony of how God moved mountains for her and how God caused walls to fall in her life. So at this time, I want you to tag. I want you to share this broadcast with someone, because it's by sharing and by tagging that somebody's answer is in this broadcast today. Somebody's answer, somebody's prayer is being answered through her testimony. I believe that on today. I believe that somebody is going to be set free today. Somebody's heart, somebody's mind, burdens are going to be lifted, strongholds are going to be destroyed through this broadcast on today. So if you have not liked the page, I am Arlesia. Just click the like button so that you can follow us when our broadcasts are every Saturday morning at 11:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And we thank you for tuning in. So without further delay, I want you to tag and I want you to share. Let me pull my chair up a little bit higher. I want you to tag and share and invite someone today. Invite, tag on someone's, post it to someone's timeline, post it to someone's inbox, and let them know there is a testimony today that's going to bring some freedom to somebody in your life. It may not be you, but it may be somebody's child. It may be somebody's aunt. It may be somebody's uncle. But today is a day of deliverance, and we thank God today. So without further ado, we're going to bring in Leila Starks. How are you this morning?
Amen. I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Thank you.
That's good. That was a powerful prayer. We prayed, you prayed behind the scenes. I thank God for you, and I thank God for your testimony on today.
Amen. I bless God.
So we're going to start with your testimony. When did your testimony start, actually? When did your story actually take place?
Well, definitely my testimony as far as homosexuality. I was in it for 11 years and God began to deliver me and transform my life in 2011. Is where that part of my testimony takes place at. But my whole life is a testimony from the enemy definitely tried to destroy me, since birth. And I understand now why, because God has great plans for my life. So definitely.
Wow. So now when you say your whole life has been a testimony, what are some of the things God brought you out of?
I definitely have dealt with, I've been molested, I've been raped, dealt with incest, definitely rejection, dealt with a lot of identity issues, dealt with low self-esteem, dealt with just not knowing my place in life, just not knowing my place in the world, and trying to do whatever I needed to do to fit in, do whatever I needed to do to find my identity, to find who I was, to find a sense of worth, because I didn't have any. And so I definitely, been through a lot, especially me coming from the church and being a pastor's kid, and in church, and dealing with, abuse, and dealing with rejection, and dealing with, not knowing who I am, and looking for love, and trying to figure it out, and doing everything that the enemy would throw my way. So I definitely have been walking this thing out.
Okay, so what are some of the things the enemy threw your way, and how did you end up in homosexuality?
So my abuse started when I was 5 years old, and I used to ask God because of being abused and just dealing with certain stuff. I used to think that God put me on this earth to just be abused and take advantage and people to take advantage of me and me for just to be isolated and just to be um just in a place just by myself and not nobody really understanding. And so for me, my abuse started when I was 5, and I was addicted to started watching pornography when I was 7, and then again abused again when I was 8 years old. And so I was going through a lot of things mentally and emotionally. And so then, going from that, I had to seek help. I had to, seek counseling. So they told me to go to this counselor at a school that I was at, and she began to also abuse me. But the enemy
The
really,
counselor at the school?
yes, ma'am. And so when I found out later in life that the enemy will plant seeds and the enemy will definitely try to take you out. And so for me, because I was so used to being abused by men and so used to, having this void because of, like I said, I didn't feel loved. I didn't feel the attention. I wasn't given the attention. I dealt with rejection because of, my parents were pastors and they were always, moving and being there for other people. And so for me, rejection was something that really destroyed my life. And so the enemy
Hmm.
used that with this counselor to be able to show me the love and the affection that I was not getting, at home. And so I equated that. I was like, well, if I'm going to be put on this earth to be abused, I don't like the way that the man touches me. I don't, physically hurt. I don't like him abusing me. But this is
Hmm.
a different type. I gravitated to the love that I was not getting or did not feel from my mother or did not feel from my father or the attention. I there was a void that needed to be filled. And so from then, I told myself, well, if I'm gonna be abused, then I'm gonna pick which lifestyle I'm gonna go down. And so I always tell people I was not born gay, but I chose this path. I chose to feel the love and the connection from a woman because that was a void that I needed to be filled because I did not have that at the time. So
Let me
definitely,
ask you something.
mm,
So the counselor that abused you, did
yes,
they
ma'am.
ever did they ever report her? Did you ever report her? Or did you at that
Later
time did not know?
Well, at that time, I was only 11 years old, so
Okay.
I really didn't equate that to being abuse at the time because I mean, I was just like, hey, something, she loves me, this is somebody that I
Okay,
looked
so
up
you
to.
equated love, the attention, the affection, the abuse, the touching, whatever it was, you were equated that with love.
Yes, ma'am. That was
And
that
this
was
is
all I knew.
important. The reason why I've digressed here is for parents to hear this and for parents to understand, what children may equate as love when they're not getting something, at home. And this is not directed to any one body, but just
Right.
information to make parents aware of how things can start and how the enemy can come in through an open door of I don't have affection, I need affection, oh, this is what affection feels like, and misinterpreting exactly what it is that's going on, and it's actually a form of abuse. So even if any children may be listening to them, if you're being touched, if you're being fondled, if the attention feels good because a parent or an adult is giving you attention in this way by touch, tell someone, let someone know, because that's not what should be going on. It's not right. Tell your parents or tell
Right.
someone that you can speak to that's safe and that will listen to you. Okay, so then you go on and you said that it was the counselor, it was something that you equated with love, you weren't getting the attention, and then from there what happened?
Um, then I started, so in me being abused, I definitely was like from the abuse of when I was like 5 years old and then 8 years old. I used to hear that it's because of, I had beautiful eyes, or it's because of what I had on, it's because of my smile. I equated, that with, well, I don't want to attract anybody to abuse me. So I started, I didn't want to wear dresses. I didn't want to wear, the pretty little outfits that girls are wearing, because I felt like, well, if this is all I'm hearing, I don't want to attract this. So I want to become invisible. I don't want nobody to see me. And so I
Hmm.
started, wearing the baggy clothes. I started, wearing the big shirts. I wanted literally to be invisible, because I didn't want to be hurt anymore. I didn't want to have people look at me and say, well, it's because of the way that I look that is attracting this abuse. And of course, as I got older, I realized, that it wasn't what I was doing, it wasn't me, it wasn't my fault. But when you're young, you don't know, all I know is I wanted to, escape. And a lot of times we do that. We want to escape. And so for me, when I started, wearing the baggy clothes, and I started, trying to hide, was not knowing that I was, taking on an identity that I would be trapped in for all these years. And, the enemy used that. If as me, it was something that I wanted to escape from, but the enemy used it for me to be in a lifestyle that I definitely did not know, I would be in for this amount of years and dealing with different things.
Hmm.
So it's definitely the enemy is so crafty, and having to deal with things. And like you said, me being somebody that was in the church, a lot of stuff we don't talk about, a lot of stuff, and they say a lot of kids don't feel like they have a voice, and the enemy wants to take that voice away. So when you don't have a voice, you begin to do things, and you begin to look for things that you shouldn't look for. You begin to experience things that the enemy will put in your face, and you dive into it. And it is true, like you said, because of the lack of attention, and and don't get me wrong, I mean, my parents, they were pastors, they had to run a church. My mom, she was a foster parent, she was giving her time and attention, and I just felt like I just got lost in transition. And the enemy definitely sees that, and he
And
uses a door.
I understand that because I have talked to women of God, and they looked back on that season as being pastors' wives, evangelizing, traveling. And as they're older now and their kids are grown, they realize the mistake that they made in not giving their children as much attention as they could have or as they should have. Um, I've had these conversations before, and it was a learning experience for me, just to hear them talk this conversation.
Mhm.
So, in your situation, I'm hoping parents are paying attention and watching the transformation in their children and watching closely and not just thinking, maybe they're born like this, but something is possibly taking place in their lives. And, we have to be eagle eyed and we have to have a prayer life to know and to sense and to hear Holy Spirit say, this is what's going on in your child. This is what's going on. You know what I'm saying? And give them how to
Right.
pray when they see these things starting to take effect and transition in a person's life. So it's not always just, oh, they like those clothes or, they want to dress like this. But these are things that we should pay attention to, as parents to see what it is our children are doing and not just think it's a fad, but
Right.
dive into it. You know what I'm saying? Seek Holy Spirit for what's going on. But this is a very important topic because it's today. It's very prevalent. It's very prevalent, and your testimony is dynamic.
Amen. It's definitely important to ask the questions, to ask the right questions. Even when talking to people, because who children or homosexual, or are in a lifestyle. Me, I would tell them to just talk to them, ask the questions. Don't just look at, because there's always a root cause to the problem. Homosexuality is just a symptom to the root cause of things that's really going on. And I don't care what it is, something happened to get them to that point. It may not everybody was molested, not everybody was raped, not everybody had sexual trauma, but something happened to get them to that point. And if you take away the homosexuality and really begin to have conversations, you will begin to see what got them to where they are today. But most people just see, well, they're gay, or they like men, or they like women, so that's the issue. That's not the issue.
Hmm.
That's them to the root of what's really going on. And like your show's called, have the conversations, talk to people. For me, if somebody would have just asked me what is going on, instead of seeing the outward appearance, or instead of saying, oh, that's Lila, or not really being noticed, but just ask the question of what's really going on. A lot of people will open up and talk, but sometimes life happens where we're not aware, and we don't take the time to stop and ask the questions. We just see the
Now, let
outward
me
appearance.
ask you this, Leela. Do you
Yes,
think
ma'am.
if someone would have came to ask you when you were in the lifestyle and you were in it, do you think if someone would have came to you and say, "What's going on?" you think you would have divulged the information?
It just depends. Honestly, it just depends at what
Because a
at
lot of
what
times when
point.
people are in their stuff and they're in the midst of their situations, and they're doing what they're doing, and they're living, as they call it, living their best life. Um, no, living their truth.
Right.
Then they say, they're not gonna just want to come out and say, yo, here's what's happened. Somebody touched me, and
Mhm.
I'm wearing these clothes because I'm just not comfortable in showing my body. I'm making it real. You know what I'm saying? I want to keep it 100.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, so this is why I'm this way. What you gonna do about it? You know what I'm saying? It's
If
like,
I say it just depends on the time frame of what it
that's
was,
true.
because when honestly, when I was younger, I didn't equate it to being abused or anything, or even when I started being was molested, I wasn't equating that as being abused, because that's not what I knew. For me, it was just my
Hmm.
norm. And so
Hmm.
I didn't know that there was something really wrong until I got older. And so for me, that's why I said it just depends on, what. And I've had the conversations, with people. I said, hey, this is happening to me. I told teachers, I told family
Okay.
members, I
So
told
what
different
happened
people.
when you would tell these people? What happened? What took place?
So when I got older, most of when I actually I told different people when I was younger, maybe like around 10 or 11 years old. I had told people what was going on, with me and this individual who started molesting me, or the other one who started molesting me at 8 years old. And I told people walked in, people defended me for that moment, but it was hush hush. And I think a lot of times when we know people who's molesters, or people who abuse people, when it's in families, or when it's a close family member or a close friend, we don't really, we don't talk about it. Everybody knows, but nobody says anything. Everybody knows that this person
Okay.
is abusive, but we don't say anything. And I think that in our culture, that's the norm. Everybody
And it
knows.
does more damage than it does good. And
Yes. And
I
then
came up in that lifestyle, and like you said, culture. Um, a lot of times people don't want to break away from their family in order
right,
to stand up, even if it means protecting someone,
right.
even if it means, I don't know if they're afraid to stand alone, but for myself, I'm the rebel in the family. You know what I'm saying? I'm considered as the rebel, and I don't have a problem walking alone.
Right, right.
And I have with my family, and I've had to with my family for standing up for something not even as serious as this.
Mhm.
I've
Yes.
had to, and I'm still living it to this day. I'm not
Mhm.
afraid to stand up against wrong, and that's where we have to get as a culture. If it's going to protect one person,
Mhm.
you have to. How are we going to be bold in the gospel of Jesus Christ, and we can't
Mhm.
even walk away and stand against wrong in our own families? And
Right.
as I'm saying this, I'm saying it in general to everyone's listening,
Right.
because this is a very powerful conversation, that we can't be cowards in the kingdom. Walk by yourself, but to protect who you have to protect.
Mhm.
And not just in molestation, not just in this, but any area of the gospel of Jesus Christ, any area of your family member, for children, whatever it is, protect people and protect the gospel. That's what I say. And be willing to stand alone. That's when, to me, you're bold. When you can walk by yourself and leave the cliques and leave the crowd.
Amen.
That's when
That's
you consider bold. Now, yes, yes, yes. Go ahead.
it's definitely hard. I think a lot of times is when you go through some things and you go through abuse, and some people, they'll say, well, I said something and I was not believed. And in my case, that was my case. Plenty of times I said it and it was swept under the carpet, or it was, oh, well, no, Leela, you're lying, or this didn't happen. And so when you are, told that, okay, well, the things that you're going through is not happening, then you begin to shut down, and you begin to say, well, okay, well, then maybe it's me, or maybe, I'm not going to say anything anymore because of the fact that nobody's going to believe me anyway. And it's very, don't get me wrong, of course, there are people out there who just be saying stuff to say stuff, but like you said, with the conversation, especially with children, I believe that if you have those conversations with them, I wasn't taught the good touch, the bad touch.
Right.
I didn't. So that's why I was like,
we didn't know anything about that. And to parents' defense, they weren't taught. You know what I mean? To their defense, they weren't taught. But one thing I can say we were taught is to shut up.
Yeah,
That's
right.
one thing, in the Black culture, we're taught. You don't talk about what's going on in this house. You don't share it. But somewhere along my life, God opened up my mouth about things. And, I start standing against things, even against my own family members.
Right.
And, to this day, I'm known for that. And to this day, I walk by myself. And to this day, I am peaceful and I am happy and I'm glad about it and will continue. And I want to digress and say this, that I know your parents. I met your parents before I met you. As a matter of fact, me and my ex-husband attended their church for a period of time. So none of this is personal when it comes to, your parents. This is a message that I'm getting out in general, to the people to hear. So I love your parents and I greet them today. And I seen you at the church at the time. And at that time, you were in homosexuality. Or I'll say this, you were dressed that way on the outside. Because I don't know what your life was, but I'll just say you were dressed that way on the outside. And I remembered, but when recently I didn't put two and two together until, I had spoke to you and reached out to you for your testimony. So you go on, you grow up, and then you end up in a relationship with a female, correct?
Yes, ma'am. So, and me being like, I started this whole thing of going down this path of homosexuality, and it was a pretty I want to say journey. It was definitely a journey for me. And so going and talking and being with different women and different females and stuff, it's definitely a lifestyle where there's a lot of things that you hold inside, and there's a lot of things that you battle. There's a lot of demons that you battle. And so I definitely, in going through this, I ended up being in a relationship with someone, and that was definitely where the enemy literally tried to take me out. And I was in a relationship with this person for 5 years, and it was like I was living the fantasy lifestyle of a family, and she had a son, and we were just this family arena that I was just living in this illusion and this lifestyle and fantasy world in my own mind of what my life was going to be like. And so
that was to mask what you were really feeling.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it was to, I wasn't really out. Again, this whole time I was in the church, I was singing, I was praise dancing, I was over the youth, I was I was preaching, in this lifestyle. I
Really?
was
So
as
when you were
a
living this
homosexual.
lifestyle, you were still preaching,
Yes,
singing.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I was
And then
doing all
the
that. I was
church you
in
were
the church.
at, did they know that you were, living the lifestyle?
Yes, they did.
Okay.
I'm telling you, it was. I'm so amazed today that I be like, God, I thank you that you didn't take me out, because I was literally playing with God. I was playing church. The fact that I was preaching and doing these things in the pulpit and singing and doing, and don't get me wrong, God can use you, but when you are willfully sinning, and that's what I was doing. I was willfully sinning. I knew that this was not right, but I would bring the people that I was talking to, the females that I was dating, I would bring them to church, introduce them as my girlfriend. Everybody knew. It wasn't a secret as to what was going on, but I was literally playing with my life. God didn't take me out, and I thank God to this day that He did not take
Yes, we
me
give
out,
him
where
glory.
I was just literally playing church. But I definitely was. Everybody knew. It wasn't a secret. And that's one thing that me and my godmom actually were talking about, of the fact that we can live this homosexuality is such a bold lifestyle. They're bold with it.
Mhm.
They, go anywhere, and whether it's the way that they dress or act or say, they're
Mhm.
very outspoken, and that's what the enemy wants. He wants the outspoken. Look at me, the attention. And so I did. I didn't hide who I was. I mean, if you didn't know me personally, I mean, you could see, definitely see that, okay, something's not right here. So I definitely did. And I was in this relationship. And in this relationship, it was definitely something that the enemy really, really wanted me to stay in there, to have this relationship. We were gonna get married. We were wanted to have a family, wanted to have kids together. And I definitely, and I cried out to God, and I said, God, if I go through with having a child and bring a child into this relationship, you can't come later on down the line and decide to save me, and later on down the line and decide to deliver me. This is a real conversation that I had with God. And I was like,
That's
because there's no way
realistic.
I'm gonna bring a child into this world, and then later on you decide to deliver me. I was like, God, that is not going to happen. And so I had these conversations with God, but this was towards the end of
Now
the
let me say
relationship.
this. So look, so while you're in it, and you're feeling uncomfortable, the fact that you have to say this to God, that you're having this conversation, you knew that that was deliverance that needed to take place. Am I right or wrong?
Oh, I definitely knew that I needed to be delivered. I was
Because
not
you're
in.
having this conversation with God. God, if I have this child, if I go to the brink of here, in other words, God, you got to save me before I get to this point. You got to
Right,
deliver me before you make this decision to bring this child into this lifestyle.
right. And I definitely knew that I was in the wrong, but I didn't I masked everything. Like, you have to be. It was at the times where I was literally vulnerable to God. But before then, I would block the voice out. Like, I knew that, like I said, I knew it was in the wrong. I knew I needed to be delivered and set free. But at that time, I wasn't worried about that. I was worried about me and what Leela thought that I wanted, and thought that, I was comfortable in. But it was at the times where, I was vulnerable, and I knew God was calling. I knew God was knocking. It was to the point where I would literally stay up at night. Like, I would literally stay up at night all night, because I'd be like, after, doing what I was doing and sleeping with this person. And I would be like, God, please don't kill me in my sleep. I used to be thought that God was going to kill me. I used to thought, like, I was like, God, please. And
So the
then I
conviction
literally,
was there and the fear of the
yes,
Lord was there. The conviction was there.
it definitely was there. But I wanted what I wanted at the time. And it wasn't until I got sick and tired of being in the cycle that I was in. I got sick and tired of me, that I literally, that's when I had the real conversation with God and cried out to him. It was like, God, if I take this next step in this relationship, there's no turning back for me. Like, I'm gonna go all the way, and there's no turning back. And so, God, I need you. And sometimes we don't realize the point that we are. God, when God truly says, God truly knows where we are, that is so true. Sometimes we could say, well, God, I'm ready. And knowing inside you're not really ready to change, or knowing inside that, you're not ready to give up certain stuff. But I'm a testimony. It's not until you're sick and tired of going through the same cycle, you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, is when you truly cry out to God for yourself from your heart, knowing that you want change. And I was real with God, and knowing that, I didn't want to keep going down this road. I didn't want to, be in this lifestyle, and having this family. And then, okay, there's a deliverance happen. I was like, and most people was like, I don't even understand how you talk to God like that. But I was like, God, I talked to
Oh,
God like
yes, he
he was my
understands.
friend.
God
And I was
understands.
like, God, this
He's
can't
our
happen.
Father. He's our Father. So, there's not a formal way to talk to God. I mean, we're not cussing him out. But I want to
Right.
say to the people that are listening, you may not be caught up in homosexuality. You may not be, living with the same sex, but sin is sin, no matter what
Right.
it is.
Right.
And whatever it is today, I pray that you make the decision, even if you're struggling, to say, God, I can't do this by myself. God, I'm struggling with this addiction, whatever it may be, the private sins that you're struggling with, that you would yield them to God and just ask God for help today. Ask him to help you out of this situation, but at the same time, resist. The Bible says to resist the devil and he will flee. Resist and ask God for the power that you need to come up out of this, and talk to God and let him know in your heart. Don't just sit in it and let the enemy cause you to be convicted, but say, God, I'm sick and tired of being where I am today. God, I don't feel that I have the fortitude, the power to come up out of this, but I know that you can help me. And I know that you can change my life, God. And God, if you do
Yeah.
this, I'm ready and I'm willing. That's with any
Right.
sin today. It's time to come up out of it. It's time. We never know. Don't just play with God. So I want you to like this video. If you're watching and you haven't liked the video yet, like it and share with somebody, because you're listening to a powerful conversation today. Okay, so sis, so now you're in this relationship. You guys are contemplating and bringing this child into this relationship. You're in a relationship with another woman, and you're going to, bring a child into the relationship.
Yes,
And you
ma'am.
pray to God and ask God, you say, God, if you let me bring this child into this relationship, don't save me after the fact, but do
Right.
it now, God. Don't
Right.
do it at the 25th hour. Do it at the 23rd, the 22nd, or maybe the 19th hour. And what happened after that?
Um, so after I had this conversation with God, it had to be about like 2 weeks later. Um, it was for my mom's birthday actually, and we had like a birthday celebration. And so I came to the birthday celebration, and um inside it was kind of weird because it's like I wanted to go, but I didn't want to go. And everything was stopping me from going to, and it was just a birthday celebration. It wasn't even like church or anything. It was, we were celebrating my
Right.
mom. And so I went to, my mom's birthday celebration, and actually my aunt, Gina, my auntie Gina
Mm-hmm.
was there, and she was,
Now,
um,
Auntie Gina was my first guest on the show when I started.
oh, okay, okay. Yeah, so my auntie came, and she, was supposed to give words of encouragement, at my mom's birthday celebration. And so she ended up, giving words of encouragement, but then she began to prophesy, because that's what she does. So she began to, speak a word to people, but she actually was talking to the woman I was in a relationship with at the time. And she began to minister to her, called her up there, began to tell her what,
The one
what
that you were
God
in a
has for her.
relationship with, she ministered to her. But
Correct.
didn't you say something about it was you told me that wanted an answer, but God,
Yes, ma'am.
see what happens when we let God be God? Go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. And so she was giving her, word of what God said. And I literally was sitting there angry, just like you said. And I was like, well, wait a minute, God, I was the one who prayed. I was the one who asked for this answer. And again, I felt like, well, God, he not there. I guess he wouldn't hear me. Or again, I felt rejected by God. I felt like, well, you know, he didn't hear me. Maybe I'm not good enough. I don't know. But I was angry because I was like you said, I was like, well, God, I'm the one. I don't know if she prayed to God. I don't know. But I know the conversation that I had with God. And so after that, it was that like service was over, everything like that, you know, no word, no nothing. And I did. I went home and I felt defeated. So I thought that I had my answer, was like, okay, well, since God is not speaking to me, then I guess it's the go ahead, you know? And so after that week, you know, went by, it was from Sunday, that week went by. Later on that next weekend, actually, my auntie Gina ended up calling me. It was on a Thursday. She ended up calling me and said, hey, she said, I don't know, I'm being led by the Spirit, but I don't know if you want to do this, but I'm just presenting this to you that the Lord wants you to come out to San Diego to spend a weekend with me. And she was like, you know, is that okay? And so I said, I thought about it. I was like, well, yeah, I'll come, you know, spend a weekend with you or whatever. That's fine. So I got that next day was like Friday. So Friday, I came out to San Diego. She took me to church. She ministered to me. She took me to church. And since that time, I did not go back to the relationship that I was in. I didn't go back to LA. I stayed with my aunt. She took me to a church on Sunday. The pastor, he preached, and he, after service that Sunday, he came out and he was like, God is telling me to let you know that you don't have to go back, that here's a safe haven for you if you need a place to stay. Whatever we need to do, we're going to be able to help you. But God said, if you don't want to go back, this is your way of escape. And when he said that, it was over.
You had to take the way of escape. So at this point, you were standing at a crossroad of decisions.
Yes, ma'am.
Either I'm going back or I'm going to take the help.
Yes, because I was only supposed to be there for a weekend. And so when he said that to me, it was like, I finally, like, God heard my cry. Like, I wasn't by myself. And I just broke down and I started crying. And I was just like, God, like, you did hear me. And everything that I was going through or that I was praying to God about, him, my pastor at the time, and, you know, my auntie Gina, they were really ministering to me. And it was just like, walls were beginning to come down, you know, for years where I felt like I was by myself, years that I felt like I was alone, years that I felt like nobody cared. And God was just pouring into me and ministering to me and letting me know that he loved me the whole time, letting me know that I was not by myself, letting me know that he definitely had a plan for my life. And so that was back in 2011. And I have not lived in LA since.
Listen, if you guys listening know that God has a plan for your life, and you know that God has a plan for your life, I want you to type in the chat, God has a plan for my life. Is Prophetess Gina on? If Prophetess Gina is on, I want you to type in the chat, Prophetess Gina, because if you accept, I might want to bring you on for a couple of questions. So Prophetess Gina, if you're on, just type in the chat. But so anyway, so you get there, you're offered this, you know, way out, and you accept it. So the process begins of the change. Now, was there ever a point where you said, I'm leaving, I'm going back?
Oh, yes. There was a bunch of times where I was just like, man, I can't do this. I used to tell my pastor at the time, I used to be like, I need a blueprint. Like, I need something because I'm going crazy. Like, I would go to him and be like, this is how I'm feeling. And he would tell me, well, I don't know how you feel. I don't understand. I've never been with the first lady was like, you know, I've never been with a woman, so we don't know how you feel. And I used to get so frustrated. I used to then the enemy was really playing on me because I moved to San Diego. Then here come the enemy. Phone calls begin to happen, and then she will begin to show up. She showed up
from the person.
Yes.
Phone calls from the person. Okay, that you left, and just because you abandoned everything. You went to go visit San Diego, and then you remained in San Diego, and you left everything behind.
Everything behind. I didn't take no clothes, no nothing. I started over from fresh. I left everything behind.
And you know, sometimes that's what has to, you know, when we want deliverance bad enough, we have to do whatever it takes to run out of the
Yes.
enemy's camp when God opens up the door. But sometimes we want to go back and get our cigarettes and our beer, and we want to go back and get mama and daddy and everybody. But sometimes you have to go alone. Like
Right.
God removed Abraham from his pagan family and said, look here, Abraham, leave your country and go to a place where I will show you. So sometimes you have to be willing. It goes back to what I said. These family ties sometimes are a hindrance. When you can't break away from your family for deliverance or whatever the assignment is that God is telling you to do, that's a hindrance. So the person starts showing up at church, you stated.
Yes.
And
Showed up at church. I would change my phone number because they had my social security. Phone calls begin to happen. I would be able to they would call and be like, this person is sick, or her son will be sick. And so for me, that was like my child. And so I would get up and run down there, or run to see about him, or run to see about her. And my pastors at the time were telling me the enemy is using that to get you back on his playing field. And I'm telling you, we drag out deliverance. I would be crying like, I gotta go. He's sick. He's dying. She has cancer. Like, I gotta go. And they would be like, it's the enemy. Please listen. I'm telling you, like, it would be full on deliverance where they're standing in front of the door, like, we're not gonna let you go because you have to see that this is the enemy. And it was true. I'm so serious. It was a battle for my life. And every time I cut the enemy off, and every time I was on this track of my process of deliverance, here come another door. When I would answer the phone, when I would answer a text, it would seem like it would bring me back down to square one, where I would have to start all over again. So this process was not just deliverance happened, but it was hard for me to maintain my deliverance. And I think a lot of people, we get stuck because it's like, well, I go through deliverance, but I'm not delivered. I don't believe it's not the fact that we're not delivered. It's we have to maintain the deliverance. The process is maintaining the deliverance that you receive. And so for me, I was not maintaining it. I kept falling, and I kept falling, and I kept opening the door, and I kept opening the window, and I kept answering the text messages and answering the phone calls. And it was not until I literally had to be knocked into reality, like, this is the enemy. Look at the pattern of the enemy, and enemy studies our pattern. So sometimes we have to study the enemy. And I had to study that every time the Lord was moving in my life, here comes the enemy. Every time I made a step to go further in ministry, here come that phone call. Every time I made a step to say, yes, God, I'm going all the way, here come that text. And so I had to learn the moves and the pattern of the enemy to say, no more. And when I did that, things began to change in my life. Like, literally, strongholds begin to come down. But I had to have accountability. Accountability, it was one of the most important things in my life at the time, because if I didn't have no accountability, I'll probably still be where I was today. Like, you have to have people in your circle that tell you, no, look, the enemy is trying to kill you. The enemy is trying to take you out. The enemy is trying to literally destroy your mind. He's trying to destroy your life. And you have to have people around you in your circle to tell you and to pray for you and be willing to go with you through deliverance, be willing to go. My auntie Gina came with me. My pastors, they was like, no, if you need to go get clothes, we're buying. They will buy me clothes. I didn't have no money. I left everything, left job, left everything to be here. And God will put people in your life to be able to say, I made the way of escape for you. I'm not going to leave you out there. And a lot of times,
so in other words, Prophetess Gina and the pastor had a plan. They were ready for you. They were ready to, oh my God. Oh God. They were ready to fight for your victory.
They
were ready. They were prepared. Just like the enemy was prepared, they were prepared.
They were actually, I would say they were prepared spiritually, but physically, they was making it happen. Because I was, when he told me that, after he said, you don't have to go back. And I was like, okay, cool. But then reality did start to set in, because I was like, well, I do got a job. I mean, I do got a place to stay. I don't have no money. They was like, we're going to make it happen. He kept telling me, this is your way of escape. If you want a way of escape, he's like, this is your opportunity. Don't worry about none of that. And sometimes we, when God is trying to prepare us and heal us, we stop for a second to think, well, God, what if this doesn't work out? And I didn't know them. I definitely didn't know the pastor. My auntie Gina, I wasn't, around her like that. She was in San Diego.
Right.
So a lot of stuff I had to, was thinking in my mind, how am I going to make it? And the enemy would definitely want us to feel like, how are we going to make it? How are we going to do this? But it was not up to me. I had to trust the plan that God was giving me. I had to trust his
process.
Yes, I had to trust the plan that God had for me, and not my own plan, not the plan of the pastor, not the plan of my auntie, but the plan of God. And when we go and move in the plan of God and in the timing of God, things will work out. So sometimes we can't, rely on our own strength. We can't rely on our own strength, but it's not by our power, not by our spirit, not by our might, but it is by God's power and might, and his plans are higher than our plans. And so when I moved in the timing of God and the plan of God, things begin to work out for me.
And how long did this take, this process? Was this going on with the fight? Everybody's timing of deliverance is different. So it's not for the sake to say that somebody's deliverance is going to take place here now. And if you guys are watching this video and you have not liked it, like the video, so that it can alert someone else to see this video and this dynamic testimony. If you're being blessed by Leila's testimony, I want you to type blessed in the chat. If her testimony is blessing you, I want you to type blessed in the chat. So how long was the process to, the fight, the struggle, until you just surrendered and said, I'm here?
It definitely took a while. It took that whole time period of 2011, really me getting myself together and getting my heart, my mind and stuff right. And don't get me wrong, even after that, I still had to fight, because I stopped, talking to women and went into just sleeping with any and every man. So I went from one extreme to the next. So it wasn't like I had this, full deliverance. I was just walking this thing out and everything was just good. I was fighting. I was not dealing with, God helped me, to deal with this part of homosexuality, but I wasn't dealing with the root part of what was going on with me. So when I cut this relationship off and I was like, okay, good, I'm good. I'm not having, feelings for a woman. I'm not seeking feelings for a woman. I'm doing this. And here comes, oh, well, you cute. I never heard people say I was cute. I had to try to figure out how to, dress like a woman. My whole time I was dressing like a man. And actually, me and my pastor, we kind of chuckle. My old pastor, we kind of chuckle about it now, because when I first went to their church, he thought I was a man. The whole time he was preaching, he addressed me as a man. It was not until after church that he found out that I was a woman, and he was so embarrassed because he thought that I was a man. And so they literally had to walk me through this process of transforming who I was, to not dress like a man, to not, look like a man, to, to be able to take on the characteristics of a woman, to be able to know how to, walk like a woman, to be able to talk
now,
like a woman.
Let me ask you this.
Yes,
so were you okay with them seeing you as a man?
When I first went to the church?
Right. I mean, when you were in this lifestyle and when you first went there, were you okay as people viewing you as a man?
Yes, that's just who I was. I was the man in the relationship. So that's who I was. That's the identity that I took on. So that's what I'm saying. When I was walking with people, that's just who I was. I had, I used to get my hair cut like a guy, and I had the clothes and I had the mannerisms and everything like that. So that's who I was. And I didn't care who he was.
Was that something you practiced? Did you have to practice that to try and talk like a man, to try and, move like a man, all of that?
No, I not, practicing walking like a man, nothing. Honestly, since I was younger, that's what I did. When I decided to stop wearing dresses and wear the clothes and stuff like that. That's just who I was. It wasn't nothing that I was, practicing to be. I don't recall practicing,
Right.
walking like a man or talking like a man or anything like that. I don't recall that. No.
Let me ask you this. Now, you say you were taking pills, or you were starting the process of changing your identity, change your
Yes,
gender.
ma'am.
Now,
Yes,
what was
ma'am.
that?
Well, when back then it was the fact of, like I said, I was taking on this identity and I did it. And so I didn't want to look like a woman. And so I was. And at that time I was, had family members who, were homosexual. And so I started hanging out with these crowds and I started, going to these parties and getting myself involved with different people. And so I didn't know anything about the testosterone shots. I didn't know anything about that. But as the crowds that I was around began to talk about it, I was like, oh, well, if it's going to make me look like a man or act like a man or, be able to become full circle of this identity that I was walking in, I was willing to try it. And I didn't know where these needles was coming from. I didn't know where the medicine was coming from. So when I was taking it again, I thank God that I'm still alive today. It could have had AIDS in there. It could have had, different diseases and stuff. I didn't know. I was just being naive and just thinking, well, I'm going to do what everybody else was doing. And that was my process of it. I didn't, really think about it. I was just, well, y'all doing it, I'm gonna do it too. And so that I did it for maybe, I want to say like 6 months. I did it, and it was crazy. I still be like, it's crazy of the fact of the things that I was doing that I didn't think about. I didn't think about my life. I didn't think about what could have happened. I didn't think about, taking needles from people that I didn't know. I didn't think about any of
So
that.
this was not anything the doctor had prescribed or you were
No,
going through a
ma'am.
process. This is just like when people do undercover drugs and
Correct.
the
Correct.
same type of situation where they get this, testosterone and
Correct.
they're just doing it. And I didn't know anything about this until now.
Yes.
I didn't know that, that's what people could do, like undercover, down low parties or whatever, and they're taking testosterone pills
It
without.
wasn't
I
as
thought this was
popular
something
as it
that
is
you were.
now.
I thought this was something that you were doing. You had set up with a doctor, and you
No,
were going
ma'am.
through the process. So, okay, I'm learning
No,
something.
it wasn't. Now it's where you can go to a doctor and stuff like that. I mean, back then there probably was, but back then everybody was just doing what they wanted to do, of just living this lifestyle out. And hey, we would be in our groups and I had my cousins or I had the parties and stuff we would go to and the things that we would do. I'm telling you now, it's nothing but the grace of God that I am still here, that we are still here. And so I didn't know anything about going to no doctor. I didn't even hear about it from a doctor. I heard about it from my friends in the group of people that I was around. So it wasn't no doctor involved, no ma'am. And if I had to go to the doctor, I'd have had the money at the time to do all that. But no ma'am.
So Gina, I'll call you Gina. So Leila, so now you're at the place to where, you're a year in and you're settling into this new lifestyle. You're learning how to, dress like a lady, and they're still working with you. And how long were they working with you until you were just like, woosah, I got it. I got it now. They were able to take the training wheels off and just let you, be.
They didn't force me to change who I was. They began to just show me. When the first lady would go to the nail shop, she'd be like, hey, you want to go to the nail shop for a while? I'd be like, no, I'm not getting my nails done. I don't want to go to the nail shop. Or, hey, I'm going to the store. You want to come with me? And she would say, well, let's try this or let's do this or, different things. They didn't put it upon me. It was something that they just let God, I would say they let God transform me, because I feel like if there was like, you look like this or you look like a man and you can't be wearing that, it would just been in the same cycle of me. I would shut down and be rebellious, and I probably like, well, I don't need this, I'm out. So they really used the wisdom of God to be able to draw me and to be able to pull me in and to be able to show me. Sometimes we need people to show us, you know, what it is that we need. A lot of people, you know, sometimes talking is good, but some people, they need to be shown. Some people need to, you know, okay, well, I think that may look good on me, or let's try this, or you don't have to be like, well, this is how you look, so you need to change that, or you can't wear this type of stuff at church. But be able to let God do it. I think when you let God do it, things will begin to be able to see the transformation, instead of people trying to put their own expectations, or trying to rush the process, or them trying to do it on their own. But when you let God do it, God will begin to be able to, work on the people's heart. Because he worked on my heart. He worked on my heart. I thought the ugliest thing walking around. Sometimes I still have problems thinking I'm not pretty enough, or, fighting with my identity, and it's real, so you really have to let God, because you will always compare yourself to other people. You will always, the enemy will have you thinking, well, maybe you're not. A lot of people didn't look like a woman. And so they not the fact that they wanted to be a homosexual, but because they was dealing with identity issues, and somebody will come along and say, well, you do look like a man, or you don't look like this woman, or you don't look like, or if you're a homosexual man dealing with feminine tendencies, and they probably never thought about being with a man, but somebody comes along and be like, oh, well, you must be gay because you talk like this, or you walk like this, or you act like this. So we have to be careful about what we say and the things that we put upon people, because we never know what they're really dealing with.
That's true, because the Bible says a soft answer turns away wrath, but grievous words stir up anger. So, and he also says, with love and kindness have I drawn thee. But I'm so excited about your story, your testimony, and what God has done in your life, and that you're living it. So now what are you doing in the ministry?
Right now I sing praise and worship. I minister to the youth. I'm just doing what God has called me to do. I'm walking in this identity of really living my life for God totally, because even after the transformation of me being delivered out of homosexuality, I still had to fight, because like I said, I was still in the pulpit preaching, sleeping with this man. I had to sleep with people. I was partying. I was drinking. I still was just doing whatever I wanted to do. And so now I'm loving the transformation that God has did in my life, knowing that you can be young, you can have a good time, and you can be saved and sanctified, and don't